AITA for refusing to step aside after discovering my husband's sister is my daughter's bio mom, and she now wants to take back the child I raised? I, 36F, have been with my husband, 43M, for 12 years. Together, we have built what I thought was a solid family. An 11-year-old son who is the absolute light of my life, and a 12-year-old daughter who, for more than a decade, I believed was my stepdaughter. When I first met my husband, I was 24 and still figuring out my future. He was older, charming, and seemed steady, exactly what I thought I needed at that time. Not long after we got serious, I found out I was pregnant with our son. That's when he told me, almost offhandedly, that he had a daughter from a previous relationship. The way he phrased it, the timeline he gave, and the vagueness of the details, all of it left me with this gnawing suspicion. His daughter had been born not long after we got together. My gut told me I might have been the other woman, that maybe he had still been involved with the mother when he started seeing me. I carried that suspicion like a stone in my chest. Every holiday, every birthday, every quiet night, I thought about how maybe I had destroyed a family and built mine on the wreckage of someone else's. And he never corrected me. He never once said, "No, you're wrong, it wasn't like that." Instead, he stayed vague, evasive, letting me sit with the guilt. Because of that, I threw myself into being the best stepmom I possibly could. It was as if I thought I could atone for being the other woman by loving his daughter enough to make up for the damage I thought I'd caused. I was 24, terrified, and suddenly faced with becoming not only a mother for the first time, but also a stepmother to a little girl who hadn't asked for any of this. And then something unexpected happened. Over time, this little girl became my daughter. I was there for her every day. I took her to school, sat in the doctor's office with her, planned birthday parties, and stayed up at night when she was sick or scared. She started calling me mom, and I didn't correct her. I never once treated her differently than my son. If anything, I sometimes overcompensated, desperate to make sure she never felt like she was second best. My husband, meanwhile, always seemed more invested in our son. He loves his daughter, but it was clear that he bonded more easily with the child he shared with me. I told myself that was just how things were sometimes, and I doubled down on making sure his daughter never felt left behind. For over a decade, this was our life. I was the one doing the day-to-day work of parenting both kids, loving them equally, making sure they both had what they needed. And even though a part of me always carried that guilt about how she came in my life, the bigger part of me knew she was mine, no matter what. That was my truth for more than 10 years. I thought the hardest part of our story was that maybe I had been the other woman. I thought my penance was to love this girl fiercely, to be the mother she deserved. I thought I had made peace with the guilt. I had no idea the real truth, far worse, far more devastating, was still waiting for me. From the very beginning, I promised myself I would never let this little girl feel like she was less than. I carried guilt over how she came into my life, but instead of letting it poison me, I turned it into fuel. I wanted to make sure she always felt safe, loved, and cherished. I remember her first day of school. She was nervous, clinging to my hand, and I knelt down to look her in the eye and said, "I'll be right here when you come back. I'm not going anywhere." And I meant it. I was the one packing her lunches, labeling her supplies, braiding her hair when she wanted it like mommy's. She didn't call me mom right away, but when she did, it felt natural, like something that had always been true, even before the word was spoken. Over the years, I became her person. When she got sick, it was me sitting by her bed, holding her hand through fevers and nightmares. When she had school projects, I was the one at the kitchen table gluing poster boards and quizzing her on vocabulary. I celebrated her birthdays with more enthusiasm than my own. I taught her how to bake cookies, how to swim, how to ride her bike. And the best part? She loved me back with the same intensity. She'd bring me little notes from school that said, "I love you, Mom." She'd make me friendship bracelets out of yarn and string, proudly tying them onto my wrist like they were precious jewels. She would sit beside me during family movie nights, her head on my shoulder, whispering secrets only meant for me. It didn't matter that I hadn't given birth to her. Blood didn't define motherhood for me. Love did. Meanwhile, my husband's bond with her always seemed different. He never neglected her, but he also never engaged with her the way I did. He was more invested in our son, the child we created together. He coached our son's soccer team, bragged about his grades, spent weekends building Lego sets with him. With our daughter, it was quieter, more distant. Sometimes it broke my heart, seeing the way she tried to get his attention, the way her little face would fall when he brushed her off because he was busy with her brother. I never wanted her to feel like she was competing for love, so I doubled down. I made sure that if her father's attention was divided, she still had me. Always. People around us often assumed she was my biological daughter. Teachers at school, doctors, even strangers at the park. They'd comment, "She looks just like you," and I would smile because in my heart, she really did. For more than a decade, that was our life. 2 kids, 2 parents, and me as the glue holding it all together. I never distinguished between my son and my stepdaughter. To me, They were simply my children. I thought the hardest part was carrying the secret guilt that maybe I had been the other woman in the beginning. I thought I'd already done my penance by loving this child as my own, by pouring myself into her life so completely. But the truth was, what I thought was guilt and redemption was really built on another lie entirely, a lie that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. For years, our family life felt steady, even if imperfect. I thought I knew where I stood. But a few months ago, little cracks began to form in the picture I've been holding together for over a decade. It started with my husband's younger sister, Emily, 26F. She had been largely absent from our lives for years, the kind of low-contact relative you occasionally hear about in passing, but rarely see. Then, almost out of nowhere, she resurfaced. She said she wanted to reconnect with family, and at first, I thought it was harmless. People grow up, people change, and maybe she wanted to mend old relationships. But from the very beginning, something about her energy felt off. She was unusually attached to my daughter, who she hadn't seen regularly in years. She'd watch her with this intense, almost aching look, as if she were trying to memorize every detail of her face. She'd hug her a little too long, ask her questions with an almost desperate curiosity. At first, I brushed it off as guilt. Emily had been out of the picture. Maybe she regretted not being around while the kids were growing up. But then I started noticing small, odd comments from her and from other members of my husband's family. At family gatherings, conversations would trail off when I entered the room. Emily would say things like, "She's so much like me at that age," in a tone that went beyond casual resemblance. Once, when my daughter laughed, Emily's eyes filled with tears. My husband's parents would exchange looks when the topic of the kids came up. It was subtle, but after a while, impossible to ignore. I asked my husband about it one night. "Is something going on with your sister? She's acting strange." He brushed me off, saying Emily was just trying to be a better aunt. But the way his voice tightened, the way he avoided my eyes, told me there was more he wasn't saying. The tension in the house grew heavier. My daughter, perceptive as ever, noticed. She asked me why Emily suddenly wanted to see her all the time, why her dad and I seemed to argue more. I tried to reassure her, but inside, I was unraveling. Then there were the silences, those unbearable, loaded silences whenever Emily was around. She'd look at my daughter like she was holding a secret she couldn't share, while my husband would stiffen beside me, his jaw clenched. I started feeling like the only one in the room who didn't know the truth. It all came to a head one afternoon when Emily came over. She and my daughter were sitting on the couch, looking through old photo albums. I walked into the room just as Emily brushed my daughter's hair behind her ear and whispered, "You have no idea how much you mean to me." Something in my gut twisted. That wasn't an aunt speaking. That was something else, something deeper, something that made my heart race with fear. At first, he tried to dodge me again, mumbling about me overthinking, about Emily just being emotional. But I wouldn't let it go. I told him straight, "Either you tell me the truth right now, or whatever we have left is done." He went pale, like the blood drained out of his face. Then he sat down, rubbed his hands over his eyes, and finally admitted it. Emily wasn't just his younger sister. She was my daughter's biological mother. I couldn't breathe. For a moment, the room spun. My mind tried to process the words, but they didn't make sense. Emily, who was just a teenager when I met my husband, who had been low contact all those years, who suddenly resurfaced with this overwhelming attachment to my daughter. She was the mother, he explained in a halting, broken way. Emily had gotten pregnant at 14. The family had panicked. My husband, nearly 30 at the time, had stepped in to raise the baby as his own, to protect Emily from the stigma, to give the child a normal life. He told me they thought it would be easier, simpler, if he became the legal father, and they never spoke of the truth. My head was pounding. I asked him why he had let me carry the guilt of being the other woman all these years. Why he had never once corrected me when I thought my daughter was born out of his infidelity. His answer cut deeper than the lie itself, because it was easier that way. Easier than explaining the truth. Easier. He let me believe I had destroyed a family. Let me shoulder shame that didn't belong to me, because it was easier for him. He let me build my life, my motherhood, my very identity around a story that wasn't true. I thought about every sleepless night, every scraped knee, every whispered, "I love you, Mom," for my daughter. I thought about the guilt I had carried like a penance, trying to be good enough to make up for a sin I never committed. And all along, it was based on his cowardice. When I asked why Emily had come back now, he admitted she wanted her daughter back. She was older now, in a stable relationship, engaged, and apparently ready to be a mother after more than a decade of silence. I stared at him in disbelief. "And what did you tell her?" I asked. He hesitated before answering. "Maybe it's for the best." That was the moment something inside me shattered completely. To him, maybe I was disposable. Maybe my role as a mother was just temporary, a stand-in until the real mom was ready to step in. But to me, there was no question. My daughter wasn't a placeholder, wasn't a duty, wasn't a lie. She was mine. Every scraped knee, every birthday cake, every hug, and every tear. We had lived those together. Blood had nothing to do with it. As I sat there, reeling from the truth, I realized I wasn't just betrayed by my husband. I had been betrayed by his entire family. They all knew. They had kept this secret. Let me live in the dark. Let me suffer under guilt that wasn't mine. And now, they expected me to quietly step aside. After my husband's confession, I thought maybe the worst was behind me. I was wrong. Emily wasted no time once she re-entered our lives. It wasn't just about reconnecting with family. She started making comments that cut straight through me. She deserves to know her real mother. I was just a kid back then, but I'm ready now. At first, I tried to brush it off as nerves, as Emily speaking out of guilt. But soon she said it outright. She wanted her daughter back. I couldn't believe the audacity. For 12 years, she'd been absent. No late nights, soothing nightmares. No scraped knees, no school drop-offs or doctor visits, no birthdays, no tears, no laughter. Nothing. And now, just because she was older, stable, and engaged, she thought she could swoop in and reclaim the child I had raised. When I asked my husband what he thought, his response nearly broke me. Maybe it's for the best, he said. She is her biological mother. Maybe our daughter deserves to know the truth. The way he said, our daughter, felt like a slap. He still used the word our, but in his eyes, the our didn't include me anymore. I was furious. For the best. For who? For Emily? For you? Because it's certainly not for her. She doesn't know Emily. She doesn't even see her as family. She has a mom, and it's me. But he just looked tired, as if this whole charade had finally worn him down, and handing Emily what she wanted was the path of least resistance. The tension spilled over one night when my daughter overheard us arguing. She came into the kitchen with tears streaming down her face, trembling. "Am I not your daughter anymore?" she asked me. Her voice cracked like glass breaking. I dropped to my knees in front of her, holding her hands. "Of course you're my daughter. You will always be my daughter." She sobbed harder. "But I heard Dad say maybe I should live with Aunt Emily. I don't want to live with her. I don't know her. I want you. Please tell me you're my mom." It shattered me. This little girl, my little girl, was terrified that the life she knew was about to be ripped away, that the only mother she had ever truly known was going to abandon her. I pulled her into my arms and swore to her, "I am your mom. That will never change. No one can take you away from me." And in that moment, I knew it wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about protecting my daughter from people who seemed to see her as a pawn in their own redemption story. The fallout was immediate. Emily cried to the family that I was poisoning the child against her. My husband accused me of being unfair, of refusing to see that biology matters. His parents stayed quiet, but I could see where their sympathies leaned. It felt like the entire family was closing ranks around Emily, leaving me on the outside, even though I was the one who had done the work, lived the life, been the mother every single day for 12 years. But when I looked at my daughter, clinging to me like her world would collapse without me, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't stepping aside. Not now. Not ever. Now I find myself standing in the wreckage of everything I thought I knew about my family. For more than a decade, I lived with guilt that wasn't mine, pouring my whole heart into raising a little girl I believe came from an affair. And now, instead of gratitude or honesty, I'm being told to step aside. I feel betrayed by my husband for letting me carry a false story all these years. Betrayed by his family for keeping the secret. And betrayed most of all by his willingness to toss me aside now that Emily wants to reclaim her role. To them, maybe I was just a placeholder, a convenient caretaker until the biological mother was ready. But to my daughter, I am mom. That word isn't just a title. It's 12 years of scraped knees, bedtime stories, birthday cakes, and whispered I love yous. The idea of handing her over to someone she doesn't know, someone who abandoned her until it was convenient to return, feels unthinkable. My daughter has already begged me not to let her go. How could I betray her trust like that? And yet I know the weight of biology. I know the courts, the family, maybe even my husband could side against me. I feel like I'm bracing for a fight I never asked for, one I can't afford to lose, because what's at stake isn't money or pride. It's my child. So, AITA for refusing to step aside and let my husband's sister take back the girl I've raised as my own.